All righty, welcome back from the episode of Two Plane Sports. Today, we are joined by our long-lost third host. Brandon is back. He won't be back for every episode, but he is now in a position to actually hop on maybe once a week every now and then until he's done. Welcome back.
Dude, I'm so happy to be back. I missed you guys. I missed the show. Let's get into it, man. Let's get rolling. It's good to be here. Basic training, good times, but this is more fun.
Yeah, you picked a good season to peace out on.
Yeah, no shit, dude. So they gave us our phones on most Sundays after like the first couple of weeks, and it started good because I watched the first two Oklahoma games and we were 2-0, and then I got an update on the Nebraska game. Saw we won 49-14, so I was like, okay, yeah, it's going to be a good season. Then we lost to Kansas State, but that just kind of happens. Like that's what we do. We lose to Kansas State, so I didn't think much of it. And then every single Sunday, I was like, yeah, we can't beat anybody. So I picked a good year. After I found out we lost 49-0 to Texas, I was like, damn, yeah, this is the season to miss.
Just say you did it on purpose. You just knew more. Even though our preseason predictions were no way it could be 1 or 2 losses. It's 12-0.
Yeah, that's I was a little off. So what went wrong, boys? Obviously, I didn't get to watch the games. Was it the quarterback play? I got to watch the Texas Tech game, so it was disappointing to see the defense surrender so many points and yards. But it's year one under Venables. But I don't know. I really thought the defense would be a lot better. But again, I only saw one game, which is a very small sample size. And it seems like every time you go to Lubbock, that's kind of the games that are played. It's the shootout. No one can stop anybody. Let's just score a bunch of times type game.
That's pretty much every game in Lubbock this year. The only team that was able to stop them was Baylor. So that was a given, I think. I don't know. I feel like in general, there was not a guy or a couple guys that were going to step up and make the play to win the game. The first 3 losses, when we went on a 3-loss win streak, definitely on the defense. Those guys couldn't do anything. And Dylan Gabriel was out. He got knocked out during TCU. So he was out for half the game, out for Texas. And then Kansas State, they beat us. So that was a 3-game losing streak. Then coming back from the bye week, when we started losing again, it was more so on the offense. They could not put it together. They all had a case of the dropsies. Dylan Gabriel did have a game where he threw 3 picks. So yeah, there was a lot of factors, but overall, just no one that wanted to make the play.
Oklahoma was 0-4 in one possession games. It was when they gotta have it moments, they just couldn't do it. And also, I think the linebacker depth did not help. They only had 4 scholarship linebackers because everyone, Roof got hurt and Wette left. Well, he's a defensive end. You just had no one, and Kanek wasn't quite ready.
Yeah, they only had 3 that they would play. They played Kanek for Nebraska. That's really it. Came in for garbage time a couple times when we were getting our asses kicked. Kip Lewis came in one time. We never saw Kobe McKenzie.
Really? Yeah. I was wondering about that. I assume my boy Jaden Rowe didn't play at all this season.
Nope. No.
Right.
So, yeah.
What about the receiver? The receiver,
Gibson.
I was super. Yes, Jaden Gibson. Any playing time from him?
He got more chances at the beginning of the year, but he also had some issues with catching the ball, so he didn't get to play much after those opportunities he got. I think their intention was to redshirt him, and I think that's something we should talk about later in the video with some of the portal entries that we saw this weekend.
Yeah.
Sucks to be 0-4 in one-score games, but at the same time, it's also coming from somebody who didn't get to watch any of it. It's almost a little bit encouraging because it's better than getting blown out. To me, it seems like we're closer by losing those close games than just getting ran out of the gym. But I don't know. We'll see. I hate to say we're close because that's what old Lincoln used to say. It was cool to watch Utah put a smackdown on USC. That was a fun game to watch.
That was. That was really enjoyable to watch. But I agree. I think if Oklahoma adds 2 to 3 playmakers, I think that's the difference of winning those one possession games. And if Oklahoma would have squeaked by those 4 games, everyone would have been feeling different about this season. It's not like the team would be a national championship team either. It's just a couple plays made a big difference. So, well, glad you're back. So today's video is going to be talking about a couple recruits, Eno Etta, Jordan Allen, some updates on their recruitments, and then Oklahoma's had a slew of portal entrants. Nothing shocking, I would say. We're going to talk about who's leaving, who's potentially staying, and then we're going to be talking a little bit of coaching carousel, maybe some Big 10, Big 12 championship games, just kind of tie loose ends up and catch Brandon up as much as we can, and try to keep him in the loop. So we're knocking on the door of 5,300 subscribers as we're recording this. We might be 5,300 by the time this is posted. We appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, like the video, and comment on the video. And actually, today is going to be the end of video challenge or mid video challenge, depending on how long Brandon can be on. He can do the challenge finally after 3 months or something like that. Jose's been filling in for you. So
I've seen a couple episodes since being back. It was cool to see the end of video challenge staying alive. Yeah, dude, I'm just excited for all of this. All of this is great.
Definitely. So we'll let you do the challenge for the people, because you're now going to be back, since that is your segment. So follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Apple, and Spotify, and Facebook. What?
Quick sidebar: are you guys still doing the betting stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, we did it all season.
How are you guys looking there? You guys giving people good advice, or are you guys horrible right now? What's your record?
Jose got hot at the end. Overall, I went 39, 37, and 1.
Hey, that's above 500, man.
Yeah.
I was 52, 49, and 1.
God, you picked
52, 39, and 1.
Oh, okay. You still picked more, but hey, that's pretty stout.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks he was on a heater.
Are you guys doing just college football games? You pick NFL games too?
Yeah,
just college.
It's college.
Just college. Yeah. So, all right. Well, Brandon, if you don't know about Eno Etta is a guy that Oklahoma is going after. He's currently committed to Michigan. He's a 2023 4-star defensive lineman from Colleyville, Texas. He committed to Michigan in July. His best friend was committed with him, future roommate at Michigan. He flipped to Miami last week, and now Oklahoma hosted him for the Oklahoma State game, and it's kind of come out of the blue, and Oklahoma seems to be gaining some steam and momentum. This season, he had 122 tackles, 18 sacks, five forced fumbles. So he's a game wrecker and a position of definite need for Oklahoma. It seems like it's moving in the right direction. Jose, what do you think about Eno? We had Parker Thune on. He basically said that if he opens up his recruit.
So he froze there for a second, but yeah, he's a good player. He's going to be interesting to follow. When, like you said, we had Parker on, and outside of whenever we talked about Eno specifically, he also mentioned that from what his expectations are, from what he's hearing, for the most part, this class will be done by the time December 21st hits. And that's really coming pretty quickly. So if Eno is going to be part of this class early and potentially be an early enrollee or not, because at this point with the transfer portal, kids need to take their spots when they get that opportunity. Oklahoma's going to have to work really, really fast, and Miami in their new commit in a Chempong. I'm sure I messed that name up, but he is, we don't know for sure, right, if he's going to end up leaving that or decommitting from Michigan. And at this point, it would be surprising to me. After he took the unofficial visit to Bedlam, it seemed like it was more like I wanted to check out if there was a different opportunity I would potentially entertain. But he said he was locked in with Michigan. Michigan at this point is probably a favorite to get to the national championship. They looked good against Purdue. They smacked Ohio State. If he wants to try to win consistently and not have to potentially go through a rebuild process, I think we can all say that Michigan's probably the way to go there. And they have an established culture, right? If he wants to be maybe a little closer to home, be part of trying to build something, then Oklahoma's is a more favorable spot because there's more opportunities to play earlier. But again, with Miami, that's also a place that's going to be a tough tough school to beat, not because they're successful in any way, but because of that new commitment in his best friend that just moved down there. So, I mean, we'll see. I think Eno's a good player. I got to watch a little bit of his highlight reels. So he could definitely be a guy that can have an effect. He kind of reminded me of an Ethan Downs. He's not like super fast. You're not going to be impressed with his speed, but he has a quick enough first step where he gets past the tackle pretty regularly at the high school level. And he has more than just bull rushing in his repertoire. You see a lot of high school guys, even the highly ranked guys, they're just super strong and are going to get through the offensive line because they're just bigger and better. But with Eno, he is bigger and stronger and better, but he's also using a little bit of technique and getting around the tackle.
So I actually watched y'all's video with Parker in length because that was a video I was excited about, trying to catch up on recruiting and stuff. The takeaway I had from that is it seems like he's a Miami lean. I mean, like you kind of just meant, like you just said, Hose. I feel like, I mean, I obviously am way behind on all of this stuff, but I feel like he's Miami bound just from listening to you guys and Thune in our last video.
That's definitely fair. I mean, what's crazy about Michigan only has a 21st ranked class, and they're, going to the playoffs at this point. It's kind of surprising. I didn't realize that they were this low until I started looking into their recruitment. So they lose Eno Etta, who's their highest rated recruit. I mean, they're going to the 25th or 30th ranked class, and that's not that great. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm getting the feeling that he's not going to go to Michigan. It's either going to be Miami or Oklahoma. And whether it's Miami or Oklahoma, it seems like Miami's got a little bit of the upper hand with his best friend being there. I mean, it's just like, Brandon, you haven't been here, but David Hicks and Damian Sanford are best friends, and they seem like a package deal. Could this be the same thing, that they're a package deal as well?
Well, didn't Parker say on the video that you all did with him that if you want to get Hicks, you must get Sanford? Like, it wasn't like an if thing. It was pretty much like they are together. Like, you got to get both if you want Hicks.
It seems that way. I mean, he says it's either they're both going to A&M or they're both going to Oklahoma. It didn't seem like Oregon was much of a threat here.
Obviously, Oklahoma didn't have a great season, and I didn't see, we lost a lot of close games. I don't know about A&M, but how could you want to go to A&M after watching what unfolded this year for them? Like, we had it bad. They were trash. I looked at what are they, 4-8 or 5-7 or some shit?
5-7.
5-7.
Yeah,
so their November cupcake.
It's not pretty down there. And then the amount of people that have entered into the portal from there of like the 2020 and 21 classes.
Levius Overton still committed there?
From what I've seen, yeah.
All their big guys.
Yet.
All their big time guys are still there. So
yeah. So but yeah, I don't know. It's something to keep an eye on. It seems like at least Oklahoma is gaining some momentum, and whether they get him or not, we're gonna see what happens. Another guy that Oklahoma seems to be trending well for is Jordan Allen, 6'4", 240 pounds, from Olathe, Kansas. He's a 3-star, and basically we talked about him a little bit with Thune on our last video. Was where would he play? It doesn't really matter what position, because he can play tight end, he can play edge, he can play wherever. He's that versatile, and he's currently committed to Kansas State. It seems like that there is some positive momentum around Oklahoma and Allen and flipping him from K-State. Whether that happens or not, I'm not sure. I do think that the fact that Oklahoma's in it is probably because Venables is so well respected in the state of Kansas. And, this is probably an underrated guy. And honestly, the way that Kansas State plays, I wouldn't mind playing like a little bit more like Kansas State, the way that they come in and they're like a big bully. And if Jordan Allen is that type of player that's not scared, I'd be happy to get a guy like Jordan Allen. It seems like, some people are going to call OU 3-star U and everything else, but he seems very versatile. Jose, do you have a thought on Allen? I mean, it's tough for me to really truly believe that Oklahoma's going to flip him, just because He's been committed. He's a Kansas kid, but like Parker said, he's probably gonna be the guy that's going to sign on the dotted line to Oklahoma if he is, and not like really make a big deal of it.
Yeah, and Eno and Jordan have similar situations. We're trying to flip them, and before the Bedlam game, we didn't really know of them, especially not to be potential flips for Oklahoma. I mean, Jordan, like you said, he's a versatile player. Oklahoma's recruiting him as an athlete. But how much will it depend on the results of the other guys in their decisions and how quickly Oklahoma can get silent commitments from them if they do manage to flip a David Hicks and Damian Sanford and get a commitment from Akana before the National Signing Day, or all Peyton Bowen and all the other guys that they're trying to go after. I feel like that might be something that to look out for. Not that Jordan wouldn't be a good addition to the class, but there's only so many spots, and with departures and people that are going to stick around still not being finalized, seems to be something that's going to leave all this up in the air. We did have a lot of people enter the transfer portal this weekend, so I'm sure some spots did open up where it might make Jordan Allen a take, regardless of what the results are for the other guys that are still being recruited. But how much, again, like you said, how much can Oklahoma make up for the lost time? Because with both Allen and Etta, you're coming in extremely late, and you have to make up a lot of time quickly. Because again, these guys, for the most part, want to have their spot secured before National Signing Day, so that National Signing Day is just signing a piece of paper. And if they're going to enroll early, start working, getting their class scheduled, and being excited about getting to college. And if they're not, then, focusing on probably, if they're not enrolling early, it's probably because they play a different sport that they want to dedicate some time to and follow through with that season. Like a Jacoby Johnson plays basketball, and I don't believe he's going to be an early enrollee. So you're gonna have guys like that are just going to sign the dotted line and move on with whatever sport they're playing this spring and winter.
Definitely. Brandon, do you have anything to add on him? No.
Hopefully he gets out of email land and comes to OU land. That's all I got.
One thing with Michigan that I think some fans that do like to call Oklahoma 3-star U, those 3 stars that Oklahoma is getting is usually guys that are pretty close to Oklahoma or from the state of Oklahoma, and that's why Michigan is ranked so low. If you go through their recruiting class, a lot of Ohio and Michigan guys, and they're not the highest rated players. Their highest rated player right now is Eno Etta, and he's the guy that's furthest away from the state. So getting some of those guys from in-state, I've never been a huge advocate of we need to keep every in-state guy in-state, but it is important to keep, even no matter their rating, keep guys that are closer to Norman because of the passion they could have. They're probably more than likely lifelong fans. They know what it means to have that Sooner on their chest. So, you gotta look at it both ways. It's not always the most exciting thing, but there's a reason that these guys can be valuable to the team.
That's definitely fair. So we can move on. That was a little bit of recruitment talk, but that also goes into recruitment is the portal entrance, NFL draft declaration, declaring for the draft, and people that are graduating and can't return. As of right now, there's been a total of 10 portal entrants from Oklahoma, counting the draft, people that have exhausted their eligibility. That means there are 25 players, or just about 30% of the roster, are leaving as of we're recording this. And I feel like it's not done either. There could be another couple guys that might enter before. I don't think we're going to see a ton more, but there could be a little more shifting in there. But looking at the portal entrance, Jordan Mukes, I feel like that it's just disappointing because he had the frame that we were looking for. It just didn't ever work out. Same with Theo Weiss and Joshua Eaton. What do you guys think about those 3?
I mean, with Mukes, that one is the most disappointing one out of the group you just mentioned. because, like you said, he had the frame and the athleticism, but for whatever reason, he couldn't get on the field. And I don't know if maybe he didn't buy into the culture that was trying to be established. That's something that Marvin Mims mentioned in an interview he did right after the season ended, how difficult it was for everyone to adjust to the changes that Venables was making culture wise. Because for the senior guys, they've had a routine over their time at Oklahoma, and now Venables is coming in and making a whole 180 for him. So maybe that was something that Mukes just couldn't handle or couldn't adjust to, and ended up being a detriment to him. On the other side, we also saw the staff be extremely strict with, if you don't know this playbook, you're not going to step on the field for us. And we saw a lot of defensive mistakes over the season. Maybe he was a guy that they saw just could not figure out the playbook during practice, and he didn't see himself stepping on the field anytime soon. And at the end of the day, the portal is meant to be is there for guys like Mukes and like Bryson Washington and the Theo Weiss. They haven't had success at the school they initially committed to, and they're trying to get to the NFL, so they got to go somewhere else to compete for that number one spot. Then it's not like a 20, like other schools, and even some of the guys that left the team this year, where they were committed and really only there for a semester, and then they dipped because they didn't like what was happening. Like Cavante Henry, he couldn't stick around for sounds like even half a semester before getting in trouble and just refusing to do anything that the coaches asked of him. So, I mean, you got those kind of guys sometimes, but these older guys that are entering the portal are just trying to get their dream of being into the NFL. Probably not going to be, day 1 or 2 picks, but at this point, they're probably not going to get picked at all. So they got to go find a way to get recognized by NFL scouts.
The ones that surprised me the most, Theo Weiss, he flirted with entering the transfer portal last season, or he did, and then decided to come back. Ultimately, I saw him play against Texas Tech. Again, he looked really good in the Tech game, but I didn't see him all season, so I don't know if he didn't produce very much. It sounds like from what Jose just said, he didn't have that great of a season, so it makes sense. But he was also talking about how the culture was good under Venables and how he liked it, and so I saw that after the Tech game. So I thought maybe he would come back, but it is what it is. Nick Evers and Alton Tarbor, though, having committed in the 22 class, already leaving. That surprised me. And that to me is almost a little concerning because I don't understand. With Nick Evers, I can see it a little bit. I just think maybe he doesn't think he'll ever see the field with Arnold and potentially DG coming back next season. But with Alton Tarbor, why is he transferring so soon? I don't understand that.
I saw, he cited personal reasons. What that exactly is, I don't know, and be speculating anything that we said, but it just, maybe being so far from home, maybe he felt like Nick Evers the same way, like he wasn't going to be able to see the field at Oklahoma for one reason or another. But I believe he was kind of injured. I think he was injured this year and he didn't play at all. It does seem a little odd that in the Nick Evers, it felt like Nick Evers was probably in his mind at the Texas game when he didn't get an opportunity to play until mop-up duty and 3 minutes left in the game when Oklahoma was down 42-0 or 49-0. At that point, he probably realized that if they're not going to give me a shake now and take Davis Bevel out, who couldn't throw a football, then when are they ever going to give me an opportunity to go play and compete? And I think that's kind of what he posted in his entering the transfer portal. It just seemed like he just, all he wanted was a fair shake, and he must have not felt like he was getting a fair shake as far as competing. And that is concerning. And I do think that's a little bit on Levy. He just felt like he must have been so dead set on redshirting Nick Evers no matter what. There's no way that Nick Evers wasn't better, or at least would give you a little bit better of a chance to win than Davis Bevel. There's no way.
Yeah, so I'm glad we agree on this Nick Evers situation, because that's something I mentioned last Monday or Sunday's video. If you started seeing guys from the 22 class enter the portal, understanding the reason why they're leaving could be concerning. And Nick Evers is his reason for leaving is the most concerning. And I think both reasons can be true, because a lot of people were saying, well, if this isn't on Levy, Nick is just scared because he's probably never going to touch the field at Oklahoma because Dylan Gabriel's probably coming back and Jackson Arnold is coming in. And when is he ever? What could he ever beat Jackson Arnold? He can't. People are pretty much saying Nick Evers will never beat Jackson Arnold, and that may be true because Jackson is a very talented guy. But Nick Evers was also a highly recruited quarterback coming out of high school, and it seems like we just, as a fan base, just threw him to the side because Levy did not give him an opportunity when the team was at its worst. You kept a guy in Davis Bevel in the game when you literally avoided throwing the ball downfield, and you ended more. And the reason I don't understand why Levy did that is you worked so hard to flip him from Florida along with Jaden Gibson late in the recruiting cycle, and then he gets to campus and you decide he's not it, and you don't give him a fair shake from what Nick Evers is saying. All these kids ask for is an opportunity. And for the most part, I mean, you're hearing it from the 23 class, a lot of them are excited to come to Oklahoma, not because we're an unstoppable juggernaut right now, but because there's an opportunity to play early. And Nick Evers probably saw something similar in coming to Oklahoma. I mean, we just had the QB room wiped out, essentially. You didn't have anyone to really compete with. And he, again, talented enough to play at a major university. He was at Florida. It's not like an Alton Tarver. He did end up falling upwards because he wasn't going to a major program like in Oklahoma until Oklahoma came around and recruited him. And he almost flipped immediately from his previous commitment or whatever situation he was in before going to Oklahoma. Nick was at a major program in the SEC that was probably going to, have as many NIL opportunities as Oklahoma did, if not more, and doesn't get a chance to play, at least in the second half of Texas. I mean, anyone that understood what was happening, except for fucking Levy, I guess, just decided, you know what? First half, we did well with Braden. Let's just keep rocking that and put Davis, essentially play 10 on 11, because Davis Bevel was on the outside as a receiver. And it's not like he was blocking because the Wildcat was just run down the middle of the field.
So we were just running the wild Sooner against Texas?
Yeah, it was literally
crazy.
The few opportunities we did have to score, they would squander them whenever they would get in the red zone. So that, and Parker Thune said it whenever he first put out that Nick Evers was getting into the portal and it wasn't something that was foreseen. He cited that day specifically. October 8th is probably the day that Evers was like, all right, I'm not getting my chance. Might as well go somewhere else. Maybe go back to Florida because they did just lose one of their 2023 commits. Their QB room's probably going to be pretty light with Anthony Richardson more than likely leaving for the draft. I know they just flipped Jaden Rashada over, but could there be a competition there? Or there's also other places, maybe an A&M. They're down bad for a quarterback. They just had Haynes King leave, and who knows what Connor Wegman is. So
what about like Oklahoma State?
Yeah, Oklahoma State.
As much as I'd hate to see it. I mean, Oklahoma State makes a lot of sense. Spencer Sanders is going to be leaving probably. And who the hell's QB2 right now at Oklahoma State? Do you guys have any idea? I truly don't know.
What, Gunnar Gundy?
Gunnar Gundy.
And then there's another guy there, but it wasn't pretty.
There's plenty of Power 5 programs that will have an opportunity for Nick Evers, and there's no tape on him, so they're gonna essentially come off of his high school recruiting ranking and what they saw out of him in high school.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's, like you talked about, staying in the Big 12. I mean, he's from the state of Texas. Could he go play at Baylor? Could he go play at Oklahoma State? Could he play at Texas Tech? I don't know. I mean, there's opportunities everywhere for him to go play, and maybe even in the SEC. I mean, you look at Arkansas's quarterback play, KJ Jefferson. I think KJ's graduating, or if he's not, I mean, he's right at the tail end of his career.
He's got 1 year left. He's coming
1 year left. Yeah, I mean, he can go play somewhere somewhere like that, or Auburn. Could he go play at Auburn for Hugh Freeze, which that's going to be a train wreck, but that'll be a fun one to watch.
Hugh
I don't
Freeze.
know. Yeah, Hugh
That's
Freeze.
wild.
Yeah, I
Auburn,
know.
man. Auburn's going to stay in the dumpster.
Yeah. So that one is concerning with Nick Evers. Now, looking at Clayton Smith, Brandon, I remember when we were recording videos when Clayton Smith committed and, joined the 2022 class, or 21 class, excuse me. We were all excited. And I know you were one of the higher, you were even higher on him than we were.
I was super high on Clayton Smith. Clearly missed that one. But I got to start getting ready for this next hit time. So
yeah.
It was good to be back with you guys this week. I'll be back next week if you'll have me again next Sunday. This is a blast. End of video, middle of video challenge. We'll keep it pretty simple this week. Just what went wrong with Oklahoma? Obviously, I didn't get to see it. You guys talked about offensive issues, whatever it might be. Just point to one or two things that you would point to as why Oklahoma didn't compete to the level that we expected. And then, it's good to be back. I'll see you guys next week.
All right.
See you, subscribe,
see you, bud.
And I'll see you next week.
That's funny. But yeah, it was good to have him back on, even for a partial video. Clayton Smith was disappointing. He just was a tweener guy in between. Just wasn't quite big enough to play the position that he needed to play. Not looking, not what Brent Venables is looking for. It seemed like Bryson Washington. Kendall Dennis, I had some hopes for because Clemson was recruiting him hard out of high school. But one common denominator is all these guys, not all, but most of the guys that are entering the transfer portal were there before this coaching staff got there. Out of the 10 guys, 7 of them were from the previous coaching staff. Cavante Henry, I'm not going to put that on the coaching staff. They're holding the guys to a disciplinary, a high level. I'm not going to put that on the coaching staff. Alton Tarber, don't really know what happened there. There could be a multitude of different things. Really, the only one I feel like they botched is Nick Evers. But outside of that, most of the portal entrants don't really shock me. What do you think?
Not only is it not shocking, but they're guys, it's not like last year where the guys that did leave were big contributors that were going to have a hard time filling in their production. Like I said, right after the Tech game, none of us really, or a lot of us did not account for, the loss of Nick Bonito and Isaiah Thomas, Perrion Winfrey on the defensive side of the ball. We knew that not having Caleb was going to be impactful. Mario Williams thinned out the wide receiver room a little bit, but it's not like the wide receiver room struggled a ton. So this year, like you said, one, they're not surprising, and two, essentially they're just depth pieces. To as rude as that may sound to people that are super on the player side. Bryson Washington only played in one game this year. Alton Tarber never appeared in a game. Clayton Smith appeared maybe in 1 or 2 games super early on in the season when in garbage time. These guys weren't making impact plays, getting impactful time where you're having to replace production. Now, we are losing guys that we're going to need to try to replace their production, like Braden Willis. That's going to be a tough guy to replace, right? Not only his leadership, but how tough he played at the tight end position. And the tight end position is pretty young. And you only have 2 guys in that room right now, with Cade McIntyre coming in and maybe a Jonathan Allen coming in and playing tight end. Eric Gray, that's going to be a tough position to replace. Now, with running backs, I think we're going to have success no matter what. And Javonte Barnes showed a lot of really good flashes, but can he take that next step in his game? And a lot of people are probably going to say Marcus Major, if he sticks around, can he be the guy next time? I genuinely don't think so, but maybe he can. Gavin Sawchuk, will he finally get to see the field? Eric Gray is going to be probably even though he had an amazing year, it's going to be the one where you can probably replace his production quicker. And then you got the tackle or the offensive line. Can you replace them with guys that are good enough to keep Dylan Gabriel on his feet? Because we saw him whenever the the offensive line was not at its best early on in the season, and he would struggle with accuracy because it looked like he was a little bit more afraid of getting hit and guys just coming through the line that was still trying to gel together when you had some injuries and Wanya Morris still had his eligibility issue. So there are some question marks, and can this production be replaced? But for the most part, the portal entries are not guys that are going to affect this team in any capacity, really.
Yeah, and really, this isn't the portal, but it's just more of graduating and declaring for the draft. I mean, Oklahoma's losing both tackles, Morris and Harrison. They're losing Chris Murray, the starting right guard, and then they also lost Conjal, which Conjal filled in for Andrew Rame, who was hurt, and would every now and then rotate in with McCade Mettower. So really, what Oklahoma is returning along the offensive line is Andrew Rame, because he had an injury and had some surgery, so he should be back at 100%. And McCade Mettower. Everything else is brand new. And McCade Mettower was up and down. He seemed to play better later in the season, though. He finally started kind of finding his footing, it seemed like. But that is a big point. And we talked about with Parker Thune that, you know, Oklahoma is going to need to add some experience along that offensive line. And I know they're in for a Blackstock, JUCO kid. But outside of that, I mean, I guess they're just going to roll with the young guys. I mean, unless they find a portal entrant and along the offensive line. So you might see Jake Taylor, Jacob Sexton, Stavion Bird, and those guys are going to get a run at it. And that is one of the biggest question marks going into next year. And how do they address the depth and what ends up happening along that offensive line? Does Caden Green get a run? Does a true freshman? I don't know. I mean, it's tough for you to go from high school to playing at a Power 5 level along the offensive line. Most kids don't have the physical ability to do that, but could Caden Green? I guess in theory, he could. It's just that's the one area where it was pretty good this year. What's it going to be like next year? It's tough to replace 2 NFL caliber tackles in the same cycle.
Well, you're probably going to see a lot of youth at the offensive line. Like you said, I think Caden Green can come in and compete. I think Joshua Bates is going to be in the 2 deep next year. I mean, outside of Rame, who's going to fill in that center spot if he does get hurt? Condrel, I think, is going to be a big, I know probably not the biggest name or the most exciting name at the offensive line, but he played at multiple positions this year, and he played well. I mean, was he going to be, first round talent, guard or center? No, but it's hard to replace a guy that can play 3 positions well at the offensive line. And he's a swing guy where if you do have a guy go down, more than likely he's going to be the replacement. So a lot of replacement, and it's going to be interesting to see how Levy and this offensive staff handle it, because assuming Nick Evers is just an outlier, he's going to need to play and give these opportunities to the younger guys. If Nick Evers was not an outlier, we're going to see a lot of older guys that maybe shouldn't be on the field because the younger guys are more talented. And again, that's clearly something that we're going to have to wait a whole, what is it, 9 months, 10 months to see. But that's going to be the biggest question mark, at least for me, going into next season. What is that offense going to look like? And will Levy get off that stubbornness and give these younger guys more opportunities?
They're going to have to. And I would like to think that they will. Because if you promise kids the opportunity to compete and then they don't feel like they're competing, that's how you're going to lose kids. And
sorry, didn't mean to interrupt there, but imagine him doing that, what he did to Nick, potentially. We don't know with 100% certainty, but it sounds like Nick didn't feel like he got the opportunity that was discussed when he did end up flipping. If he does that to Jackson Arnold, and he's told he has to redshirt or sit behind a Davis Bevel or General Booty, like, the fan base isn't going to like that. And I'm assuming he's going to be the first one to get fired next year. Regardless of the production of the offense, if you have guys your recruits leaving after a semester or a year, that's not a good look. It doesn't matter how much your offense is producing, you can't have your youth leave because you're never going to build anything.
No, that's a good point, and I'd like to think that, and maybe Nick Evers felt like that Jeff Levy preferred Jackson Arnold, and that was his guy all the way through because he was recruiting Jackson since he was at Ole Miss, and maybe he just felt like there was a little bit of favoritism, and I will say Jackson Arnold is he's a top 10 player in the country and is in the high school ranks. It's tough to compete against it, but Nick Evers was a top 10 quarterback in the country. So it's not like he was a slouch by any means.
And that doesn't, what Jackson Arnold is doesn't take away from what happened this season, though, is my point. You can't, again, and it's all because of the Texas game. I think Parker Thune hit that nail on the head perfectly. Why not just give him an opportunity for an entire half of football? Throw the ball down the field. Let him also see where he's at. Let him see what you believe you see, because these guys aren't not self-aware, especially with their play. They understand where they need, for the most part, these guys know where they need to work their parts of their game. If Levy genuinely feels he wasn't ready, it's not like Davis, we weren't going to win that game with Davis Bevel, but give Nick Evers an opportunity to also see where he stands in his skill set, and he didn't get that opportunity.
Yeah. So it's tough. It is what it is. We wish everyone that's going in the portal the best of luck in your new homes. It's just going to be interesting to see where everyone goes and who gets scholarship offers and everything else, because that's the biggest thing with the transfer portal. You enter your name in, there's no guarantee that you get a scholarship offer. And that's really the unfortunate part, is there's a large chunk of kids that have a scholarship, give it up, and then they never get it back at any school. And that's the little bit of the scary part when it comes to that. But when you're a Nick Evers, you're gonna get a scholarship opportunity. Theo Weiss is gonna get a scholarship opportunity. It's just unfortunate for guys that are like 3 stars coming out of high school, haven't seen the field. How many people are coming after you? I don't know. So as we're recording this, OU hasn't been selected to a bowl game or anything like that, but I'm excited for them to be able to play a bowl game. Do you have any thoughts on watching some of the Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12 championship games or anything like that happened on Saturday?
Well, to echo what you guys said earlier in the video, it was fun to see the Pac-12 championship. As whatever you guys want to say about the USC Trojans and Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams is 1,000% the best quarterback in college football right now, and there's really no argument about it. You can throw your hatred on it, but skill-wise, what he produces, he's the best quarterback. And he was hurt, so it's unfortunate that he wasn't playing at his full strength, but he was playing, so no excuse to lose there. You got to play. You got to do with what you have. Lincoln Riley, per usual, and his teams could not tackle, so that was hilarious. I know that the OU Twitter was having a blast with that joke. Michigan did what they were supposed to. Clemson, not sure if you guys watched it. I got to see most of it when I was at dinner with some friends, but they look good with Cade Klubnik at the helm. I don't know I'm not sure if you watched it, but I just checked out the ESPN app because they had the Michigan game on over the Clemson game where I was at, and I saw that Cade threw a touchdown, and I was wondering if DJ just never got the chance to start or if Cade was brought in quickly after the game started.
To be honest, I was watching the Michigan game as well. I'm not 100% sure, but Cade Klubnik put up some numbers in that game. He threw for, DJ Uogale, or I can't never say it. He did throw 5 attempts. He attempted 5 passes. So he played. I just don't know what the exact context is, because I was like, well, it's Clemson. Why do that? I'm looking. Actually, he did start the game. DJ did start the game, and then he got. I'm looking at it right now. He got 2 possessions. The first 2 possessions, they went. They punted both times. They were 3 and outs on both of them. And then initially, as soon as they put in Cade Klubnik, the first drive that he came in, they scored a touchdown, 9-play, 71-yard touchdown. It definitely gives a feel of Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams type deal. And I think Dabo Swinney was playing with fire all year because he knew it was probably one of those deals where most kids knew on the team that Cade Klubnik was better. And just like Caleb Williams was better than Spencer Rattler, and everyone knew it. And then as soon as you put in Cade Klubnik, a spark happened.
It doesn't make sense why Dabo was so stubborn. I don't understand the stubbornness for some of these coaches. I get that they're trying to be loyal to their guys that have been loyal to them. But he's gone through this exact same situation with Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant. You know the result of the potential result. And you don't know exactly if DJ was going to improve. And he showed flashes this year. But he struggled more than he succeeded. Why not just let Cade Klubnik take the helm and then... Because, I mean, I get that once you go to Cade, you can't go back to DJ, really. But you're trying to win, especially when you're having a season like you were. You have a really good defense. Your biggest question mark was your offense. They were just the alternative of USC. USC has an elite offense, shit defense. Clemson has an elite defense, shit offense. So you're really just going to get if either of them would have managed to get into the playoffs, you're going to get the same result, in my opinion. The result of the game, they were going to get waxed. But real quickly on the Pac-12 game, I think for OU fans, we should look at what they did, because that kind of looks like what Oklahoma wants to be. An elite defense that is going to give opportunities to their offense, because it's not like their offense was amazing. But USC just couldn't fucking tackle. But their defense stepped up and stopped Caleb Williams when they had to. They picked him off in the red zone. I mean, that defense was amazing. I don't know if their defensive coordinator is ever going to entertain leaving to maybe a bigger school, maybe like in Oklahoma. But that should be a name that hopefully we can see in a coaching carousel going towards Oklahoma one day. Let's see, the SEC game, Georgia did what they were supposed to. LSU looked bad, and I think that should just make Alabama's chances even worse, because their 2 losses are now to a 4-loss LSU team and a hobbling Tennessee team. Barely beat an average Texas team. Alabama shouldn't even be in this conversation. I don't care if people say they're the better team or they would be favored. They were favored in every single game that they played this year, and for most of them by double digits, and they were in a ton of one possession games. TCU, it's unfortunate, but Max Duggan, he at least needs to be in New York. And if he's not, again, the whole system is rigged, because that dude put his heart and his team, he put his heart on his sleeve and his team on his back. And if it wasn't for Duggan, that TCU team probably is not the situation they are at. If Chandler, it's going to sound shitty, but if Chandler Morris wouldn't have gotten hurt, would TCU have been 12-0 and in a position to be in the college football playoffs? Because Duggan did a ton for them this year, especially in that Big 12 championship. It sucks that they couldn't win it, but that's the kind of guy that you want on your team, a guy that has so much passion and drive that he's going to do every single thing, is going to pretty much destroy his body to make sure that he wins one game. He's not even worried about being ready for a college football game, a college football playoff game, and being fully healthy for that. That doesn't matter to him.
I kind of almost think it's a blessing in disguise for TCU. I'm not saying TCU is going to go win a national championship, but sometimes when you get humbled like this right before you go play in a playoff game, assuming that they're going to stay in the 3 spot, which I think they should, and they play Michigan, I don't think it's overly far-fetched of TCU beating Michigan. I don't think Michigan is good, don't get me wrong, and I think Michigan will be favored. But it kind of gives you the feel of like Duggan's going to be the ultimate motivator for his guys, like a Tim Tebow. Remember when Tim Tebow was crying at the press conference after their loss? Like Duggan was doing the exact same thing. And I just kind of wonder. I mean, this could be a turning point. I mean, they've already had kind of a turning point after the Oklahoma game when they smacked us. But I kind of feel like they're going to be able to rally around and be extremely motivated. Like losing once sometimes is good. I mean, it's tough to go perfect, go 15-0. And I'm not saying that they're going to be able to beat Georgia and Michigan. That'd be their path to the championship. But they might give Michigan a run for their money, and very well might beat them.
Yep, I agree. The only other championship game I can think of that really, the game itself wasn't something that I watched or really cared to watch, to be honest. But the SWAC championship, Dion Sanders, coach's final game at Jackson State. I think we all assume that all of those big time guys, mainly a Travis Hunter, is going to enter the portal here in the next few days. And Colorado is going to be stacked going into the 2023 season. We'll see, but I think that him leaving to Colorado, I mean, good for him. That's awesome. And I think he handled it as well as you could. I mean, these reports were coming out before it seemed like he was ready to tell his team anything, and he was kind of forced to tell them before the game went on. But he is going to be dangerous, at least in the recruiting trail. Who knows how he's going to coach at this level? I mean, he did really well in the SWAC, but can he have a similar coaching performance now that he's in a Power 5 conference with a team that is terrible? Can he flip them quickly enough to be at least mediocre next year or average in the 23 season? With his recruiting, I think it's possible, and that's going to be dangerous for a team like Oklahoma or Texas. If you just want to focus on teams on the Pac-12, it's going to be dangerous for SC and Oregon, because now he's gonna be going after Texas guys a little harder now that he's got more money to back him up. And California is not that far either, and guys are going to want to play for Dion, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So it's gonna be fun to watch. I hope he doesn't take any of the guys Oklahoma wants, but I mean, there was already a report that he called Brandon Ennis, and if you guys have been following us for a long time, you know that name. He's a 5-star wide receiver currently committed to the Buckeyes. He called Brandon Ennis and tried to convince him to not sign on National Signing Day and give him an opportunity to establish something, get himself prepared at Colorado, and check out what the Buffalo are going to do going into the 23 season. And if he can take a Brandon Ennis, a guy that's been locked in with Ohio State for almost a year because he flipped to Ohio State almost immediately after Lincoln Riley left, watch out, because that dude is going to be dangerous now that he's got a name behind his already very well established brand and money.
And if anyone can flip a program that is arguably one of the worst Power 5 programs in recent memory, it is him because of the name. I mean, if a random person gets hired, you're not going to get the pull. But Dion Sanders goes there, and immediately kids want to go play for him. And now he's at, a Power 5 conference. He's got money behind him. Not that he didn't at Jackson State, but it's just, that much bigger of a school and bigger conference. Colorado could be back. I'm not saying that they will be, but they're going to be better than they were this year. That's for sure. And the transfer portal is going to be rolling for them.
Yeah, they're going to be almost average. To average is my prediction for next year. I don't know if he can flip that shithole around all the way to being like a 9-10 win team next year, especially because they're going to play teams like USC and Oregon and Washington State, who are all pretty good this year. I mean, 8-4 or 8-5, not that wouldn't be the worst. Or 8-4 wouldn't suck. 7-5 wouldn't be the worst after barely winning 3 games this year.
No, they won one. I would think 6-6 or 7-6 or 6-7 is right where the expectation should be. He's going to get you close to 500, if not over 500, and then build upon that. Colorado is rough, And it's interesting that he took the Colorado job. It must be that he just felt like that the boosters are ready to really back the team. I would imagine after going 1-11, Colorado at one point was really good. And I would imagine the boosters are ready to get back to where they were at one point, and Dion must feel that he's going to be supported there, because he wouldn't have taken that job if there was no support financially and everything else. So
yeah,
it's going to be someone to watch. It's going to be fun to watch.
I agree, especially with Cincinnati being there. That might be also kind of something that the Big 12 should consider. Like, you're about to bring in Cincinnati and a big time, at least a big name coach. It wasn't really that wasn't the destination he wanted to go. He's about to go into a Power 5 conference. I guess there's other factors as well. I mean, are they going to be ready to spend as much money as a Colorado? But the Buffs are going to be. I'm going to be rooting for them. They're gonna they'd be coming out my new Pac-12 team.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. So, but yeah, this was a pretty good video. It was kind of a hodgepodge getting Brandon back. Everything else, he did the mid-video challenge for everyone. So be sure to do that. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Make sure to tune in tomorrow, 8 p.m. Central. Brum and I are going to go live with JP and Travis. Probably going to talk about some of the coaching stuff, transfer portal, and then we'll know what our bowl game is and who our opponent is by then. So probably chat about that as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I forgot to mention that at the top of the video, but be sure to tune in. So turn the notification bell on. So whenever we do go live, you get a push notification so you can join. Be sure to subscribe, like the video, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify, and we will see you guys Monday night.